Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the BeeRPad. Hope you're
Can you hear me?
to a great start. And here is Marcus Beer.
Sorry about that. Late to my own funeral. And here I am, all bright and over.
Marcus got whiter in
Oh, look at that.
2024.
Huh?
Marcus got whiter in 2024.
Yes, indeed. Well, if anybody was going to do it, it was fucking. Let's. Here you go. That'll do. That'll do.
Yeah.
So yes, the reason I dropped out was, or I wasn't in, was I was trying to test a new connection using my iPhone camera, and the picture looks great, but my Wi-Fi isn't strong enough to carry the broadcast because So next week, hopefully we'll see if I can run the phone through my PC and the hardwire, and let's see how that works next week. Until then, here I am, pale, pasty, and in your face. See.
So how was your New Year's, Marcus?
Christmas and New Year's was honestly, it was very good. It was tough.
Yeah.
But my wife did an amazing job. We had a great Christmas day. We took it very relaxed, and then it's funny. Friday night we were out with friends having dinner. Saturday night we were out at an anniversary party for our good friends. New Year's Eve we stayed home, but we stayed up until 1 a.m., which is something we haven't done in about 4 years.
Wow.
Which means that I'm slowly getting more stamina, which is good. And then last night we went to some really old friends of ours who we haven't seen for several months, who live over on the west side, and we went to their New Year's Day party and felt all frivolous and happy and everything, and it was just really good. And now it's like back to the grindstone with all the goodness that gets associated with that.
Yeah.
So how was your Christmas?
Yeah, everything was great. Lots of cooking, lots of smoked meats. Made a prime rib, made some beef, had some crab legs, lobster tails, saw a bunch of family and friends. And now, just last night, I think I hit my limit and I have a little cough. So hopefully it is nothing that will stay with me too long and will go away soon. And
yes, I echo that. Please make sure that you are healthy going into 2023 or 4. We don't need we're not going to start off with people being sick, are we?
No. But what we are going to do is go back to 2023 for a little bit and talk about our favorite movies of 2023. We are picking 5 each, running down. There will be some overlap, which I think is perfectly normal. But there are going to be some pretty big differences too. So while we like a lot of the same things, we also like a lot of different things. So this should be fun for everyone involved. I love your picks, and I'm looking forward to talking about mine. But why don't you kick things off, good sir?
Okay, well, I will. And yes, I mean, I've seen your picks, and I think they're pretty damn awesome. Sorry. Yeah.
Whoa.
How's that? Good. Okay. Yes. Sorry again to move things around to try and accommodate the new connection, and turned out to be a monumental waste of time. I could have just spent the rest of the day playing Ghosts of Tsushima, which I've started replaying since New Year's Day. All right, number 5 on my list. She's plastic. She's fantastic.
Yes.
It's B to the A to the R to the B to the I to the E. Mattel's finest creation, some would say. The most unexpected blockbuster of the summer, the number 1 movie of last year, and so enjoyable. It's everything so many big movies have not been recently. In particular, the big sci-fi ones, the big Marvel movies, DC. It was fun. Didn't take itself seriously. It played it straight. It didn't play it for nudge, nudge, wink, wink kind of humor, look into the camera. And the fact that it was played safely, played straight, like everything that happens in their world is totally normal. really, really made the difference. The cast are amazing. Yeah, I mean, even though it's the Barbie movie, I've got to give a shout out to Ryan Gosling for his "I Am Ken" song, which is just hysterical. But yeah, the entire cast. I mean, the leads, all the different Barbies were absolutely brilliant, including Kate McKinnon as lightly vandalized Barbie. Um, yeah, so I thought the script was really funny. I thought Greta Gerwig, who I've not really liked a lot of her stuff,
Oh,
but she yeah, she handled the material that she co-wrote with her partner really, really well. The supporting Kens were also quite awesome, and I've got to give a shout out. I know you'll probably give a shout out to Simu Liu, who's your boy, but I'm going to give a shout out to the 15th Doctor, Jude
yes.
Law, who is there as one of the Kens too. But yeah, it was funny. In fact, I think the weakest link was Will Ferrell. It was almost like Will Ferrell was playing the character he played at the end of the Lego movie. And while I like Will Ferrell, it would have been nice to have somebody with a perhaps more dramatic chops to really get that across. But yeah, absolutely fantastic movie. Saved the summer box office, I think, as a lot of people will say. And, you know, lessons to, in particular, Warner Brothers with DC and Marvel and Disney with Star Wars and Marvel, in fact, on, you know, not everything has to be a tied in multiversal, you know, just make the film that we can enjoy. Add a couple of tidbits that the knowing winks to the fan base, and the fan base can go, "Oh, I got that there," instead of hitting us over the head all the time. So, yes, fantastic. That was my number 5. What was your number 5?
My number 5 pick is Shortcomings. This is a movie that is based on comic strips by Adrian Tomina, which was collected into graphic novels. I like it because it's very much an Asian American story. A lot of Asians started getting roles after Crazy Rich Asians, which mostly covers a bunch of crazy rich Asians in Singapore. Whereas this movie is more about kind of like a late
Same
20s,
Asians.
late 20s, early 30s, smart but bitter, kind of washed out Asian American man in San Francisco. He has a lot of angst, lot of anger, relationship issues, a lot of it which is self-perpetuated. So there was a lot about this character that I could identify with. It was directed by Randall Park, which I didn't know he directed. So he's one of my favorite actors.
He's a comic legend. I mean, he's an
Yeah.
excellent comedic actor, but he's also an excellent actor. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, he is that. Anybody who's seen Always Be My Maybe, especially when he's got his group going and the rapping. I mean, he
Yes.
is just a delight to watch on screen. So I haven't seen this movie.
Yellow Peril. Love it.
Yes. And the tennis balls.
Yes. So it stars Justin Min and Sherry Cola, who had quite a good year in 2023. She was also in Joyride, which was kind of like a Asian American bridesmaids kind of movie. So she plays the best friend that hides the fact that she's a lesbian from her parents. So it's interesting because it shows the Asian American experience, but also how Asian Americans deal with each other. Because Ben's character is Japanese and she's Korean, but they're best friends, but their parents have conflicts. And it's very interesting how, you know, there's even racism within the Asian American community, which should surprise nobody. And most of the movie, first half takes place in San Francisco, second half takes place in New York, which is, I grew up in New York and I lived in San Francisco for quite a spell. So that was meaningful to me there. But I just loved the Ben character. He was, they made him more likable for the movie. He's kind of more of a miserable piece of crap in the comics, which I could identify more with. But I just loved it. It was a very different character. He wasn't anything noble or heroic about him. He's just a dude that's trying to do good, but often fails. Uh, really good supporting cast. There's Jacob Batalon from the Spider-Man movies, Timothy Simons, who I loved in Veep. He has a small role in this, and Sonoya Mizuno, who was in Crazy Rich Asians. But this is the first movie I can think of where it's an Asian American slacker is the lead, and I enjoyed the comedy, enjoyed the writing. And this is probably my most personal pick out of my top 5, but it is there nonetheless. Now, your number 4 pick is very different. This is Shortcomings is a small independent movie. You're going for a big galactic blockbuster that I also really enjoyed. What do you got?
Well, it's also, I mean, it's a total, obviously in the last movie, when I talked about Barbie, I said, it told Marvel and Disney and everybody else where to go, because their stuff had become so unwieldy. And this is a prime example of what good Marvel fare can be. It's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. It's James Gunn's final foray into Marvel Universe. Now he's Mr. DC. It wraps the Guardian story up really nicely. It's incredibly emotional. I'm not going to recap the plot because the plot is out there. It's on Disney Plus. You can watch it. It's a great movie. It follows directly on from the Guardians Christmas special that they dropped last year, which was obviously really quite cute and cool. But yeah, I mean, this was a really good goodbye to Star-Lord's run in the Guardians. And, we thought we were going to get a bunch of deaths. Thankfully, we didn't. Things got a little close. There was a version of Earth that was pretty terrifying and bizarre. We met the High Evolutionary, who may or may not become the new Kang. We'll see. Probably not. And the things that he did, or they did, which were basically just brutal and the experiments and inhumane and almost remind you of, a lot of the experiments that have been done by evil regimes over the years. But yeah, I mean, it goes into Rocket's origin, and it's just so incredibly touching, especially the fact that, and it pays tribute to the voice cast that they have, obviously led by Bradley Cooper, in that the most emotional, impactful scenes are the ones that are done by CGI, but the voice acting is biblical. I mean, the CGI is actually really quite excellent. It's been a step up from anything we've seen from Marvel for probably about 2 years. And it just really sets the tone. And it's a beautiful finale to the trilogy. DC's gain is Marvel's loss. There was no way that James Gunn would ever have been offered a Kevin Feige level job at Marvel. But I'm so glad he was able to come back and finish his trilogy. It's certainly my favorite Guardians movie, which is high praise because I loved the first one. And it's probably in my top 4 Marvel movies ever. So yes, I say kudos, amazing, well done, all the cast and crew, and what a wonderful goodbye. And if it's not goodbye, there's enough interesting things to carry on, but it didn't hammer you over the head with it. The post-credit scenes was a chef's kiss. It hinted. It didn't say, "Oh, look what we got." It was how Marvel movies were in the build-up to Endgame. And since then, they've just gone crazy. So that's my pick. Loved it.
I liked it too, not as much as you did. I'm more of a fan of the comics, and Gunn did his own thing, which is totally cool, but it very much stepped away big time from the comic books, particularly Drax and Mantis. And they're fun characters in the movies. Didn't make it would, I'd say it's in my top 10, not my top 5 for last year, but still very much enjoyed it. Now, my next pick was actually your number 5 pick. So we're going back to Barbie Land.
Double Barbie trouble.
Now everyone's talking about the cast of Margot Robbie being the perfect Barbie, and she really was the perfect Barbie. But to me, the hero for this movie is Greta Gerwig. I like her movies a lot as a director, not as big a fan of her as an actor, but I like the stuff she's done, that she's written and directed. And I love how she handled this movie. She handled it, it was approached in a fun way, but there was also some great satire and parody. And they talked about the damaging effects that the Barbie toys have had on the perception of beauty, particularly in America. And it looked at that in a serious way that delivered a message, but wasn't, preachy and heavy-handed. And I love what she did with this movie. I can't wait to see what she does next in terms of writing and directing. There's so much money on the table that they almost kind of have to do a Barbie sequel. And if Greta's involved, I expect great things from it as well, even though that wasn't what she had planned. But I hope she delivers something interesting and thoughtful and fun. It just is really hard to do something that's funny and thoughtful and interesting. And they knocked it out of the park with the directing, writing, and acting. So kudos to you, Barbie boys and Barbie girls.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I said all the plaudits that I've given it.
Yeah.
And I just can't speak highly enough of it. Well, like I said, it wasn't my number one movie, but it was so good to see an all-female led movie that was written and directed by a woman do so well. I mean, everybody embraced it. Well, almost everybody. There's obviously the Piers Morgans of this world and other collective fuck knuckles who are like, oh, it's emasculating. Oh, they don't like men. Oh, you're idiots who can't understand parody, irony, and a really quite clever critique on what is the situation between men and women and the inequality between men and women on this planet in the 21st century.
Yeah.
So, thumbs up.
The thing that surprised me was that a lot of people in our circle of video game professional people, a term I just made up, a lot of them were surprised at what the movie was. They're expecting a standard blockbuster toy crossover thing instead of what Greta Gerwig delivered. So I was surprised that they were surprised because, from the director of Lady Bird, so I wasn't expecting
from the team that brought you Battleships.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Look, we've seen, I say team, Hasbro did Battleships, I believe. But board games or toys or anything like that haven't necessarily done that well. Recently, we were lucky. We had Dungeons and Dragons, which is quite excellent. Now we've got this one, and it reminds me of some of Marvel's mid-phase, so like 3-4 success, where it's like we've picked the right directors to do this and write and helm their vision. It's like that lightning in a bottle with Thor Ragnarok and Taika Waititi, who took it in a brand new direction. So you've got to understand that the bar is exceptionally low, and now it's raised this out of all expectation, and now we're going to have whatever else is next on on the licensing list, like Snakes and Ladders or Shoots and Ladders, as you call them in this country. And then we'll have McNugget, the movie, and KFC Bargain Bucket, the movie. So we're going to get a bunch of dross now because everybody's like, oh, we must license toys, we must do this, that, and the other. And it's going to be painful. And it will be interesting to see if she agrees to do the sequel or not.
Yeah, I mean, as much money as the first one made, I might be hard to turn down, and it might be hard to let go of.
If she had a couple of points in that, if she had some profit share in that, then happy Hanukkah to that family.
Yeah. So our number 3 pick is actually the same, which is actually incredibly convenient.
It is indeed, but it's also a damn fine movie.
Yes.
And it's the first one off my list that's not a blockbuster. It's more of a small indie.
Yeah.
but it's got an amazing cast. It's a very heartwarming story, and it reminds me of the sort of movies that we would used to get with regular abandon in the likes of the 70s and the 80s, where they'd be called perhaps art house flicks. And we have seen them sort of like die a death at the multiplex. And I'm glad to see that more of these are actually getting really good cinematic releases. The film's The Holdovers, with Paul Giamatti, and he plays a university English professor who basically is an East Coast, sort of like Connecticut or something.
Yeah,
University is fictional.
Yeah.
And going into Christmas break, they have some kids who don't get to go home. They're called the Holdovers. See? Very clever. Is this an Alexander Payne movie?
It is.
It is, yeah. I mean, he does really good stuff. He's had a couple of missteps where here and there, but yeah, he does really good stuff. And the fact is that you've got this young cast of characters. You've got these amazing supporting characters, including Monique, who yet again, oh, there she is, who yet again just shows her amazing acting chops. And they go from being this, everybody hates everybody else, blah, 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 to, they peel back the layers and everybody is damaged in a different way. And we learn why, and they bond over those damaged parts. And
Yes.
That's what human beings tend to do when they're, when they're put together like that. So yeah, I thought it was, it was a very, very good film. The wife and I just, yeah, it took us back to almost, like I said, the seeing movies from the 70s or the 80s where now we just queue them up on the TV, but getting that experience. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, me too. Alexander Payne is one of my favorites. Sideways in particular, which he did with Paul Giamatti, is one of my favorite.
Merlot.
Yeah. One of my favorite movies of all time. Election is up there for me as well. And Paul Giamatti he's like the best curmudgeon ever. He's so talented.
He is. He does it so well. And I mean, Sideways, you mentioned that one, and it got me going back to watching that movie, and I just loved it. That was a great cast. He pulls a great cast together.
Yes.
And he gets the best out of them. And I think this is some of Paul Giamatti's finest work. When he was Rhino.
I think he should get a trophy for this one. I mean, he's been nominated for his performance in this. I think Alexander Payne should as well. One of my favorite things about his movies is the way he's able to tell a story with just framing a shot perfectly, having actors that are not talking, just doing nonverbal communication, and having music set to it. He can say so much in like a 90-second montage of that. The other thing that I thought was really interesting is the way the film was colored. Now, that's not something you hear a lot of, like, oh man, this colorist is awesome, but it looks old school. It looks like it was shot on film, with like
it looks like something from the 50s.
It does.
Early 60s or whatever, I mean, it looks like it was, and that kicks off right from the intro sequence.
Yes.
The introduction and then the post credits, and the soundtrack is excellent. I mean, every aspect, you're right. Every aspect of this movie comes together and tells a story that's just so it's just, I mean, it's a genuine feel-good movie by the end.
Yes, for sure. But it looks old school, but it was shot digitally with a really modern camera. But apparently a lot of credit goes to the colorist for choosing the colors that he did to give it that period piece look. And I was shocked to learn that it was filmed digitally. I would not have thought that.
It looked like it was filmed on old school film.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to what you said about Giamatti, I think this is one of his finest performances. You're right with regards to him being up there for an award. I think unfortunately he's dropped this performance in a very, very crowded
Yes.
I mean, we've had some real bangers in the last year, and I just think the same thing for Alexander Payne, on who he's up against. I'm just looking at some of our picks because we've got 2 picks each, and
Yep.
there's some films there that are going to be very, very award worthy.
Well, I think the Scarecrow is the favorite for best actor. So I mean, he's.
Well, we
We
may
will get
get
to
to
that.
him if his
Yes.
movie's on the list. Who knows?
Yes. Now, so since this handles both of our number 3 picks, I'll just flash my Chiron here as well. There's my ticker. Why don't we move on to your number 2 pick, which was also very close to being on my list. It was hard to leave this one out.
Yeah, and it's something we've talked about ad nauseum, ad infinitum, and it's ironically a multiversal superhero movie, but it's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. It's an excellent follow-up to Into the Spider-Verse, which was one of those movies that totally took me by surprise. I never watched it in the cinema. I decided to rent it when it came out on digital, and I was kicking myself for years after that I didn't see it in the movies. This one I went to see in the movies. It was such a great experience. Again, fantastic voice acting, not least from, I think it's Shamar Moore. Yes. My memory's slowly returning. As Miles Morales, the torn and conflicted young hero. But yeah, an excellent cast. Miles gets pulled into the multiverse this time, but it's an intriguing, connected, almost logical multiverse. Most unlike anything else Marvel has done with regard to the multiverse. In fact, it's anti-Marvel in a lot of ways. But we get to see so many Spider people.
Yeah.
We do see the return of Peter Porker, Spectacular Spider Pig. We get to see Spider-Man Noir. We also get to see Spider-Man 2099, which is about time because Spider-Man 2029, Miguel O'Hara is an absolute baller. I remember reading that first issue like 200 years ago. I'm going, this is gonna be awesome. And then the news agents that I used to get the comics from didn't get another copy in ever again. So yeah, I think it was absolutely, it's just so happy and entertaining in a lot of ways. Again, stellar voice work. Going on for what I said about Guardians, the voice cast is amazing. The directors get so much out of it. The script is really good. Yes, I was disappointed when I got to the end of it. And I know, I have to wait now for part 2, which is this year.
It was supposed to be, but then there were those strikes and everything.
I think
it is not this year anymore.
I think they'll try and squeeze it out at the end of the year. They need the money. I hope they do, because I'd like to see the end of it. Just a great, enjoyable, and it's not the same directors as the first one, which is always a tough one when you follow up, and that's why I think Barbie might be quite interesting on how that works. So yeah, loved it, and I know you liked it a lot too.
Yes,
you told me that you liked it, and we discussed it for a lot. So
yes,
about it.
That was a tough one to leave out, and we will talk more about that soon. But let me talk about my number 2 pick, which I talked about a lot last year as well, which is the Marvels. Now, I'm such a big fan of Kamala Khan and the Khan family, and they totally made this movie. They were so good. I want to be adopted into the Khan family. I'll be the other brother. And the Khan family beat up some Amir. But all 3 of these leads were fantastic. They're such different characters, but they worked really well together. Tanaya Prince, I mean, I wasn't sure what to expect from her because she had such a small role in WandaVision. So this was a major step up. Knocked it out of the park. Brie Larson, of course, is fantastic. And this was her best performance. I think you agree as well. This was the best she's done in any Marvel movie.
Absolutely, 100%. And this was close for me. I want to rewatch it to see if I was a little harsh on it by not including it in the top 5. But yeah, that trio, as a unit are just amazing. They bounce off each other. Their characters are so good. And Kamala Khan is just the most joyous character in the MCU.
Yes.
And I cannot wait to see what they have next of her. But please carry on with your dissection.
Yeah.
Goodness.
It was good to see Sam Jackson bounce back from Secret Invasion because I really disliked it. But he was great in this movie and he looked like he was having fun. There's something about older actors having fun and just letting go. You see it with old Sam Jackson. We're seeing it with old Kurt Russell in the Fast movies and in Monarch as well. So I like that, these guys are that we grew up with, that are on the tail end of their careers. They're just, I don't give a shit. I'm just having fun with this. This is a silly job. Getting paid. Yeah. And they appreciate everything now. So
yeah, and your point is well made there with regards to Secret Invasion. Marvels was so enjoyable; it made me even more angry about Secret Invasion. And I am the only thing I'm thankful for with regards to that streaming turd is that we will not be seeing the likes of that again. It was so bad; it caused Marvel to totally rethink how they do TV. And we will see what happens now with Echo in a couple of weeks.
Right. That's soon. I forgot about that.
Very, very soon. But that is an absolute baller cast. They bounce off each other so well. And yeah, Brie Larson finally brings a lot of personality. We know she's an excellent actress.
Yes.
But she's almost been closed off. And I think that's some of it was by design with regards to the scripts.
Right.
And this one time they wanted to bring her out because, again, when we saw in the first movie, she was having memory issues. And then in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, she'd been cut off from humanity.
Yeah.
And so she hadn't had a chance to really do anything. But you see her blossom as it gets further into the movie. And you see that team come together. And a lot of that is from Iman Vellani. Is it Iman or Imran?
Iman, yeah.
Iman Vellani, who, she's just an infectious bundle of joy, and
she really
I just want to keep her. I want to keep her in the glass like an Oompa Loompa.
Now, before we get to our top picks, I want to talk about things that just missed the list. For me, it was Across the Spider-Verse and Godzilla -1. Those were really tough to leave out of my top 5, but they were so close. How about for you?
I'm seeing Godzilla -1 tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. Marvels, as I said, was really close. The other one that was really close that I watched in the holiday season was Wonka. Now, everybody really loves the Gene Wilder Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yes,
and this is a prequel to that.
Yes,
Timothy Chalamet is effervescent, kooky, charming, earnest. I mean, he's just excellent as Willy Wonka. It tells the story of Willy before he got his chocolate factory.
Yes.
The movie is totally stolen by Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa.
I wanted more of him. I
absolutely wanted more, which means we're probably going to get that in the inevitable sequel. In fact, the only issue I had with the movie, can you guess the issue I had with the movie that stopped it me putting it in my top 5?
Too much musical?
No, I fucking love musicals. I love musicals. The kid.
Oh, okay.
Kid, and again, it's not her fault. I just don't think it just felt shoehorned in again. I know that there is a twist at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got no issue with the color of the casting and how they've changed a couple of characters. Fine, great, more power to everybody. Do it. I'm not precious over that, but she just wasn't good.
Yeah,
I think she kind of just pulled everything back, and he didn't. And maybe I've been spoilt. Because let's face it, after Temple of Doom and Short Round, every single child sidekick is going to be fucking annoying. And maybe she'll go on and have a great career, but I could have done without her. I
enjoyed it. It was very positive. but it didn't give me the thing that I love so much about Wilder, where you didn't know what he was. Is he is he a good guy? Is he insane? Is he psychotic? Like throughout that movie, you weren't sure because he flips so many times. Whereas Chalamet's version of Wonka is totally a good guy, very charming, very delightful. But I like that bit of insanity. Kind of reminds me of Dumbledore. You know, when they had to switch Dumbledores because Richard Harris died. I loved his Dumbledore because you weren't sure is he old and feeble or is he supremely powerful and insane? Like you weren't quite sure.
I think we'll get that in the sequel. I think this was they had to tiptoe around the legacy of Gene Wilder. And I think, as an origin story, I think it did absolutely fine. It will be interesting to see, especially if it's only 2 movies and then they connect to the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It would actually be really quite lovely to watch this version of Wonka go hit the highs, hit the lows, and really it's like what drives him to cut himself off from the world. And
right,
that actually might be really interesting because let's face it, and I'm not a hater of the Tim Burton version. I think it's a different take. I think it's it's perhaps it's a little again a little different to the book. I mean, none of the movies have really captured the full essence of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator.
right.
I mean, they are quintessentially British stories written by Roald Dahl. And so obviously, Gene Wilder was slightly Americanized and they put it into this nebulous European city that could be German, Dutch, who knows. And they continued that again, despite having a prevalence of British accents in there as well, except the 2 main leads, which again, it feels like the casting is off. It feels like Warner Brothers said, well, we can't really do this because it has to appeal to Americans because Americans are apparently stupid. And somebody at Warner Brothers should have realized that everybody loves the fucking British accents. So a cheeky kid in there might have actually, a cheeky British kid might have actually done a lot better than the lady who, the young lady who was there. So yeah, that was, I mean, all that just combined. I mean, some of the music was really, really good.
It was, yeah.
Nothing was a banger that totally earwormed, but nothing was a banger and earwormed the first time I watched Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So it takes a couple of times to listen to it. So, on a rewatch, I think there are a couple of songs there that'll sort of like worm their way into my psyche. But that was the thing, the one that missed out because of just those couple of failures.
Now, for my list, everything in my top 5, except for the Marvels, which isn't available digitally, I own digitally already because they're a bit older. The Marvels should be available digitally in February, but that's a day 1 purchase for me. And the Marvels is the only movie that I saw multiple times in theaters last year, which is how much I liked it.
I didn't see one movie multiple times in theaters last year.
Well, I bought one of those movie passes. So
I haven't too, but
I feel like I'm ripping myself off if I don't see at least one movie in theaters a week.
No, you're right. I mean, we have the AMC one, and it is a concern. But yeah, I haven't seen a movie multiple times in the theater since Endgame. I think I saw that 3 or 4 times. Because obviously the next year we had the pandemic and everything got put to one side,
right?
And everything else that's happened. But there's not been anything that's really grabbed me enough by the lapels, shook me, and said, "Come back and watch us again. Why don't you?" The other thing is, I don't like human beings, and I hate being in theaters with people, no masks, masticating, breathing out, coughing, videotaping with their phones, letting their 4-year-olds into frickin' Oppenheimer or something. I have a real problem with humanity. I really do. And it's sad, but what you're going to do? Everybody's entitled. Everybody thinks that, they should be allowed to do whatever they want.
Of course.
Screw everybody else. So
now let us go to our number one pick, sir. And
my number one pick
yes,
is Barbenheimer. Oh, no, sorry, Oppenheimer. It is the genius piece of counter programming that came off opposite Barbie. Christopher Nolan, with probably one of his best movies to date. One that I think will do very, very well come awards season because they love a good biopic. And Cillian Murphy is an incredible, he just delivers an incredible performance. But everybody in this movie delivers an incredible performance. Emily Blunt, Robert Downey Jr. I mean, there's just so many great actors. Now, it's funny, a lot of people I know watched Oppenheimer first because it was almost 3 hours long, and then went to watch Barbie as the palate cleanser. We did it the other way around. We watched Barbie first, drank our sodas, peed like champs, got more sodas, and then walked into Oppenheimer and watched it on IMAX because you have to. And I was concerned. I was actually concerned that this movie would not do well because, again, I have, as you probably can guess, a really low opinion of the American cinema going public. And I was kind of stunned with how well it did and very impressed. Well done, America. You went to see a smart movie. You're good, ain't you? No, I am. I mean, it does give me some hope for humanity in that, in days of the Emoji Movie or the Super Mario Brothers movie, which no matter which way you cut it, fucking sucked. The people went to see this and went to see it. And it pulled in the box office numbers and the reviews were phenomenal. And it is my favorite movie of the year. One I haven't rewatched yet, but I know it's obviously available on digital. I just need to block out half a day of my time to draw the curtains, maybe take some drugs, happy pills, because it gets dark. I mean, it's about the guy who, was the father of the atomic bomb, which was, has only been used twice in the history of this planet, and both times by this country on another country. I mean, it really does. It humanizes him in a lot of ways. It doesn't hide his demons. It's not a head up your ass, kissy, 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 hero worshipping movie by any stretch of the imagination. And unsurprisingly, the administration that was in charge at the time, they do not come out of this looking good.
Yes.
But yeah, that is my pick. Best movie of last year by a fair way, and no offense to the other movies, but again, between that and The Holdovers in particular, I just felt like had gone back in time a couple of decades and I was watching proper movies. I still love my Marvel, I still love my DC, but not Aquaman 2. I won't watch that. But I love my Star Wars and my sci-fi, my Star Trek, and I love my kooky action movies. But there's something so wonderful to watch this sort of movie and learn as you go. And I know it's slightly dramatized, it always is.
Yeah.
But it gives you a much better grasp of the nuances that went on behind the scenes that you don't normally get from just history books.
As a segue, I mean, there are still a lot of good small budget movies. They just don't have the distribution that obviously that a Barbie or a Marvel movie gets. I mean, here in Vegas, it's pretty bad. We have maybe 1.5 theaters that shows small budget movies consistently. LA, we had a lot more choices.
We have a few. We have a couple down here. We have the Lemley. We have I think that's the main one for the indie stuff. And I mean, I think the indie is always great. But with Oppenheimer, we had a big budget, big distribution, non-superhero, non-children's toy, non-franchise. I mean, we will not be getting Oppenheimer 2, Oppenharder.
Right.
But
I mean,
but it's just refreshing that all that money went into it. all that money was up there on the screen, and the craft was there in every single way. And it was a monumental risk, because this could have died on its ass, because again, people are like, oh, I don't want to watch a movie like that. It's 3 hours long. Okay, no.
Right.
So the fact that we've had this big budget beauty of a movie, I mean, it's like Gone with the Wind. It just takes you back to those days of seeing those movies where Kramer versus Kramer was not, an indie. Gandhi, the biopic by
Sure, but I mean,
A Passage to India. These are the movies that we had in the 70s and the 80s, and this again felt like that. And I understand there's obviously the indies are always good. I mean, you've watched a bunch of them. A bunch have made your list.
But I mean, I wouldn't say it goes. And there's still recent indies that are pretty good. I mean, everything everywhere isn't like a massive thing. Even as recently as I think Lost in Translation is 20 years ago. So I mean, there are still, you have to make more of an effort for sure to see these kinds of films, is what I'm saying. But I encourage people to do that.
And A24 and these companies are doing really, really well. Everything Everywhere All at Once, that's an indie.
Yeah.
To me, and that was a great movie. We just watched Dream Scenario with Nick Cage. That's a of a movie. It's not. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's it's actually really quite insightful how it takes on cancel culture.
Right.
But I'd recommend that to anybody. But that's not a big release with a big budget. It does have a star who is known for working his ass off, and making 30 movies a year.
A24 that you mentioned, that's just such a great example. They've had Minari. They did Parasite as well, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a great studio that does good stuff that's different and not your standard blockbuster. So I encourage everyone to support those kinds of companies.
I do too.
Yeah. And that brings me to my number one pick, which is a small film called Past Lives.
Oh, little cutie. I knew this was going to be your number one from the get-go. I still haven't seen it, unfortunately, but we are, once it's available on streaming, we are going to watch it.
I don't think it's available for digital purchase. I don't know when
it is
going to be streamed. So this was written and directed by Celine Song, so Korean American woman, and it stars Greta Lee, who some people know from The Morning Show. Some people know from Russian Doll. But yeah, this, I hope, was a star-making performance for her, because she's great in The Morning Show. I love her in that, but she absolutely knocked it out of the park in Past Lives. So this movie is about a pair of childhood sweethearts that grew up in Korea, but the girl moves in probably like 12, 13. Her family moves to Canada, so they become separated and lose touch. But through social media, they reconnect 10 years later, and they start to rekindle some of those feelings. But she wants to focus on her career, so they lose touch again, and flash forward another 10 years, where she moves to America to pursue her dreams as a writer, and he's working some boring business job, but he flies to America to see her one last time, to see if there's any hope for them. And it talks about the concept of inyan, which is described as providence or fate or destiny. And it makes you think about the layers of your relationships and what you believe in. Do you believe in a past life? Do you believe in an next life? Do you believe that there's nothing after this existence? So depending on how you see that, it will change how you interpret the story of these two. By the time they do the second flash forward in New York, she's already married, but her husband is pretty understanding. Actually, it's kind of halfway to being a cuck. So
You
He's
should
like,
watch the trailers. I mean, I watched the trailer, and anybody who hasn't seen it, watch the trailer, because the husband just seems like a bona fide
pushover.
nice guy who might just be a little bit clueless because
Yeah.
this guy's just turned up to try and take your missus away, and it's not a case of welcoming him. It's a question of calling immigration and getting his visa revoked and shipped back to Korea.
They do have a nice moment at the end of the movie, the two guys. So it doesn't forgive any of his past actions for being such a pushover about the whole thing. Where I was almost waiting for a
that
scene.
much faith in his wife, which is a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah, or you can be like, just sleep with my wife one night. Why not? He was that close. Not really, but the final scene at the end where she is walking her childhood sweetheart to an Uber so he can take off. And it's just such a build, the emotion of their meeting after all these years and the obvious connection that they do have and the choice that she makes and her walking back to her place and then just breaking down. It's such a simple scene, but it's so well filmed and acted and directed that it becomes such a crazy powerful thing. It's one of my favorite scenes ever. And it sounds stupid when you describe it. It's like girl and guy walk, girl walks back. It's pretty much what happens, but the way it's executed is so incredibly powerful. And it's such a interesting and thoughtful movie that depending on your views in life, you will interpret it in different ways, which I think makes it the most interesting. I was very happy that this movie exists. Greta Lee is nominated for a bunch of awards. I hope she does well. And I hope you see this movie if you haven't heard about it. I highly recommend it. It's my favorite movie of the year. And that wraps up our list. Why don't we knock out some comments here? Carlos says I think he made this up. The new actor in the running for Kang is Coleman Domingo. I think that's some guy in this social media group I'm in. I don't know if I believe that. The Circle of Video Game Professionals sounds like a great name for a band. Yes, a bad band. So I think we shall take that. Maria chimes in.
Domingo is he's in Fear the Walking Dead. He was in The Color Purple, Candyman, Euphoria, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Yeah, he's done a bunch of stuff. He's a very accomplished individual. He reminds me of Vance. Oh, can't remember the guy's name. He's in the Office Christmas Party. Courtney B. Vance.
Oh, yeah.
He's got this kind of same sort of like facial structure. But yeah, if he's a good actor, I mean, he's been nominated for Tony's, Olivier Awards, so he's done a lot of stage work. So, if he's the recast, great. If they can figure out a way to finish off Kang, great. Otherwise, just put Kang out of pasture. But don't go with Doctor Doom, please. Don't ruin Doctor Doom. Well, I mean, I'm worried about the Fantastic Four movie where they're talking about Pedro Pascal as Mr. Fantastic. Too old. Make him younger. Make him around the same age.
Well, Reed Richards famously has the gray.
Yeah, but he has the gray hair. The gray hair comes after the
cosmic rays. Yes.
But yeah, they're now talking about. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff rumored about this movie, including Mila Kunis as She-Thing. So I think a lot of people are just like pulling things out, out of thin air. But yeah, I'd rather save Victor Von Doom for a proper turn in a Fantastic Four movie, as opposed to just pull him out with no explanation as a bad guy.
I am confident that they have no idea at this point because of all the
I think no idea has been Marvel's mantra for the last 2 years.
So Maria agrees that The Holdovers was excellent. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. Carlos brings up Paul Giamatti's role as Pig Vomit. in Private Parts, the Howard Stern
Howard
movie.
Stern.
I think that
Yeah.
was the first time no,
Yeah, it's probably the first time I saw him.
or is that before? Or he has a bit role in My Best Friend's Wedding where he plays like what are the guys that get your luggage at a hotel? What are those guys called?
Bellhops.
Bellhops. He plays a bellhop in that.
Oh, sorry, I'm getting tired and old.
Yeah.
Yes, I like Pig. That pig vomiting character was really good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maria asks, what about VGP as a band name? I like it. You down with VGP?
We'd have to be Notorious.
Yes. Carlos asks if I'm a fan of their cousin Tony Khan. Not right now, but I am a fan of Bishop Khan, who is in the embassy, the Mogul embassy. Quiz Lady, underrated. I do not know this one. Do you, Marcus?
Isn't that the one I think with Sandra Yee and Aquafina?
Sure.
Possibly? Is it?
I don't know. I'm intrigued. IMDb.
I may be totally wrong.
Oh yeah, Sandra Oh, Aquafina.
Oh, Sandra Oh, not Sandra Yee. Sandra Yee is somebody I used to work with. Sandra Oh, who I also actually met in an elevator not long after Sideways was released, and I told her she was awesome.
Oh yeah,
lady.
I've loved her since Arliss. That was my first time I saw her.
We didn't get that in the UK. So.
Carlos agrees that you can't go from Jim from The Office to Pedro Pascal.
Yeah, and look, I love Pedro Pascal. I just don't want to see him shoehorned into absolutely everything. I'm sure he wants to remove Wonder Woman 1984 from his superhero resume, but I just don't think he is Reed Richards. 10 years ago, maybe, not now.
No, I don't think they know what they're doing at this point. Carlos notes that Quiz Lady is on Hulu, so if anyone out there was interested in that, thanks for that tip. And that will be a wrap for our top movies of 2023. Hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a comment with your favorite movies of the year. I'd love to hear them. Love to hear. Thanks to Maria for bringing up Quiz Lady. Definitely want to see that now. And always looking for more recommendations. So please leave a comment. If it's streaming, let me know. Let us know what streaming service it's on. Don't forget to like, subscribe. All our socials are up there. And what are we going to do next week, Marcus? I think
we're going to finish off 2023 before we send it to a farm upstate. We are going to talk about our favorite games, going back to show that we are indeed video game professionals.
VGP.
Yeah, and we are going to talk about our top games. I'm not going to say top 5 because there may not be 5 games that I really enjoyed last year. In fact, I can only think of 3 right now. So there may be 2 that are going to get a bit of a kicking because let's face it, annoyed gamer till I die.
And maybe talk about some of the things we're looking forward to in 2024, of which there are also only 3 that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
One's next month. So excited for Final Fantasy Remake Part 2. Wonder how many of these things they will be.
150 because they know you will buy it.
Now, it is not. It is a very different story so far. I'm surprised. Kind of like how J.J. Abrams took the Star Trek in a new. It's like a divergent timeline. So,
and what he basically did by just remaking The Wrath of Khan, but from a different perspective. Yeah, you don't want to invoke JJ. Both JJ and Zach, what's his face? Let's not invoke those because that's just not good.
I like those Star Treks. I enjoyed them. I liked his first 2. The third one was not great. Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Thanks for watching, guys. And you'll see you next time on the BeeRPad.
And a happy new year to one and all.